Hey everyone, and welcome to the 8-Figure Agent Podcast. My name is Jared Larsen, and I'm joined by my co-host Matt Walker, CEO of Swivel, the world's most flexible financial services CRM. Our mission is to build community, a community where we can empower each other to achieve remarkable success in the financial sector. Join Matt and me every week as we will motivate you to reach new heights in your career and unlock your full potential. Reaching your next level of success starts now. Hey, and welcome back to the 8-Figure Agent. I'm Jared Larsen alongside Matt Walker. And today we're going to talk about something that if you happen to be in HR and we say something wrong, we're not going to apologize, but we're going to be talking about staffing. And we're really going to start learning some of the signs and key indicators that you may be ready for growth. And then once you are ready for growth, how you can start going about the process of looking for candidates, hiring candidates, holding them accountable, and making sure that you're successfully raising these people into the growth of the company as you grow. So Matt, let's talk about some of these key indicators for growth. What would you suggest in your experience have been some of those sticky points, some of those bottlenecks where you're just like crawling out of your skin saying, man, I'm struggling, something's got to change?
Yeah. So I remember, my journey started at a company called Mass Mutual, and it was a captive agency, and they had kind of some processes that I followed. And I was thinking, man, I'm having a hard time. I didn't even have enough clients. I didn't have enough appointments, but I was definitely busy. And I was busy with enough stuff. And I saw these people with staff members. And I was kind of like watching what they would do. And certain people would have staff members. And I saw them working, and I'd go into their office and they're playing solitaire. And I'm like, this doesn't seem to make any sense at all. They're just paying for them to do the work, right? And then there was others that it seemed like they were meeting all the time. So the staff members were actually working. I had a personal coach, a guy who hired me, a guy named Sal Laveley, and really have a lot of respect for him. And he was helping me kind of understand when that kind of critical time came. And it came for me when I was starting to get behind on my client work. I wasn't getting to all the appointments that I needed to. I was spending too much time setting appointments. So I have these ups and downs where you start noticing I have a ton of appointments and then I have none. I have a ton of appointments and I have none. And that's, to me, is kind of the key indicator for the first one, is when you start seeing these cycles of success then down. And a staff member, what they were able to do is help me not have the drop. I could continue with that rise. Instead of dropping, I would have someone that was working on the things I should have been doing when I was now meeting with people.
Yeah, Matt, talk to us about what the down looks like, right? So you're building, ramping, appointment, paperwork, and then what's the down represent?
The down represents no more appointments. So it's like I've kind of sold the people that we sold, or they've left, and now I'm kind of chasing, but I didn't do the chasers like I should have. I wasn't setting the new appointments like I should have. And so now all of a sudden I'm fumbling to get that calendar filled again. And what would happen is I'd fill up my income too. I'd get a lot of money, and then it would be like, spend it, get a lot of money, just enough to spend it, get a lot, and I was just kind of going through this cycle. And if you're going through that cycle, congratulations. It means you're going to make it in this business, but it means you probably need to look at hiring someone.
Yeah, I love to call that the yo-yo effect, right? It's the downs and downs of ups, and how do we, instead of down and up, start to create this more stable? Yeah. It's never going to look like that, but how do we get the troughs and the valleys to wave like this in that growth?
Yeah, and I was fortunate. I got married a little bit younger than most people do, and my wife was helping me out during the time. And we have some great memories, and we're closer together because of it, because, she knows a little bit about my business, and, she was there for kind of the start of how it all started. Yeah, that's how, we jumped in it together, because I couldn't afford someone. So she came in, and then I kind of was able, she, moved on, and we were able to hire people and make it more stable as we went.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that, how you struggle with it, but you figured it out. You were kind of at capacity, though. You were bumping your head on this yo-yo, right? I think there's a difference between that and someone who just doesn't want to do something, right?
Yes.
Because I could not be at capacity. I may be like down here struggling, but I just don't like to do it. And so I'm like, man, I'm just going to hire somebody to do that for me, right? Well, there's merit in hiring someone to do something you don't like, but look, you've got to lead with revenue and manage your expenses. So until you filled your coffers with enough work and you've tapped yourself to where you start having these indicators, that could be business growth, it could be a skills gap, it could be paperwork. There's so many indicators that you're going to start feeling this pinch on you. The pinch isn't, I just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Right? There's going to be a lot of these other indicators that are going to start suggesting, hey, Matt, it's probably time you start thinking about something else.
Yeah, if you have enough money that you can just go hire some of those people to do those things, then you're right. There's exceptions for that. But most of us are running a business, and we don't have limited resources, so we have to find those spots where it's like, yeah, you got to get to capacity before you bring someone in, and no one's going to get it right. Like you're going to get it too late or too early. I personally err on too early. And as the organization's grown and we get more and more people, and I kind of get that sense that, hey, we're running people crazy here. I always err on earlier than later, or at least I try to. But yeah.
Yeah, and the risk of waiting later all the time is burnout.
Totally.
Right? It's fatigue. It's burnout of either a current employee or even yourself.
Yeah, I mean, with yourself, you can kind of just deal with it.
Yeah,
is how I personally feel.
Yeah.
But when you do that to an employee, you can really get yourself in some trouble.
So let's say now, Matt, I've reached my capacity. It's time, man. I got to pull the trigger. I'm ready to make a hire. The first step that I think about oftentimes is identifying the need, right? What's the real need? If I were to make a hire, why would I need to make the hire, and what need would it be fulfilling? And so talk to me about maybe some of your weaknesses and why you would hire to somebody to help you. And when you felt that pinch or that bottleneck, what need were you looking to fill?
Yeah. So if you talk to any entrepreneur, they'll give you the story of their momentum, their vision, their passion. And if you talk to anyone that's like closely related to them in their life, they're like, oh, he is all over the place. She is a crazy person.
He's a train wreck.
Yeah, he's all over the place. That's usually the story that you get. And so, fortunately, I'm somewhat self-aware. And so it was really finding someone that could, number one, do the task. Number two, control the ADHD or whatever it is that I have that I'm bouncing off the walls all the time with ideas and things that can kind of channel it, take it, make something of it. And so finding that is hard to do. I mean, it's a trick, but that's where I started looking. I said, I can't just be a person to do a task. I need a person that can, for lack of better terminology, take care of me.
Yeah. Well, I think about the person that can take care of you. The number one biggest mistake you can make in this situation is say, I need to hire. Let's go put an ad out there and hire, right? And I'm just going to start interviewing, and I'm just going to interview a whole bunch of people without thoughtfully starting to think about what tasks would they be doing? What would they be responsible for? What would even a job description? I know this, I hate this because I'm a fast mover. I cannot stand taking the time to write a job description, but I will tell you unequivocally, every time I've hired without a direct job description with very clear expectations on why I'm hiring, what happens is I hire someone on because I like them, and then they start doing 15 other things that never really helped me overcome what it was I needed to overcome so that I could do and be who I need to be.
Oh, classic first hire mistake. You go hire this person you like. They start doing the job. They don't like what you need to do. They want to do what you are doing. And so they start trying to do what you're doing, and you got no one in the organization doing what needs to be done. So, I mean, if you're going to be to hire and you can't afford it and you don't have the time, well then sorry, you're not a business owner. You've got to find the time to step back and be able to define what needs to be done, put some expectations. We talked about standards before, clarity up front. All of those things have to happen before you bring them in, or you're just setting yourself up for disaster.
And we've got to hire to something.
Yeah.
We're hiring to fill this need, and I identified the need. I've got the job description. We're ready to go. And now I love my friend Matt, but I also know that Matt's going to go in there and he's going to fumble the interview because he loves people, right? Matt, you always see the positive in people. Tell me about the struggles that you embrace in that.
Yeah,
and
so
what you've done.
I've been real fortunate to hire one or two key people over the years. I mean, more than that, that I've personally hired, and they've worked out really, really well. I've also hired a ton of people that haven't worked out well. And what I've learned about myself is, for good or bad, I absolutely like anyone. And I'm not just saying I kind of like people. Like, I fall in love with people, like everywhere. Like, I meet some guy in the subway and I'm like, I'm telling my wife how he's the greatest person I've ever met. And
It's a superpower.
Yeah, I just love people. And so I have an interview, and like in 5 seconds, I'm like, I can tell you're special. You know, like I just like, I will say the worst things. I will do the worst things. I'm like, you're going to be fantastic here. I can already tell.
You've given him the job already.
Yeah, I've given him the job. I'm just so bad at that. And so I had to find the right personalities that could actually interview. And I would take and project myself onto people, and it would cause problems. And so, you know, I remember talking to my my father-in-law, who I really respect, and I was like, look, there's things I see in my son that I just want to tell him, and he doesn't listen. And he's just not ready for this. Now, he's a great kid. Alden's amazing, but it's like he's just not ready. And you just kind of got to let some people just figure it out as they go. And I was like, I'm done figuring it out. You've been where I've been. Just tell me so I don't screw it up. Guys, gals, listening to this, if you haven't hired before, listen right now. This is one of those moments. You will screw it up if you don't do it this way. You've got to be able to have the standards in place. You've got to be able to have the duties in place, and you've got to be able to have the expectations. And if those things aren't in that first interview, you're shooting yourself in the foot and you're causing problems later. And if you don't want to admit it, that it was your fault at the beginning, it usually portrays itself like this. I don't know what happened to them, Jekyll and Hyde, and they're totally different people, and they're the worst hire I ever. Well,
let me tell you why, Matt.
Yeah.
I have a firm belief, and you guys can kick me in the shins if you want to. Anybody can show up to an interview for 45 minutes and tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah, that's totally it.
And then when they show up and they live with you, like when you date someone and you go on a couple dates and you're there together for 30 minutes and you have all these grandiose ideas, but the reality is you spend some more time together, you start to know who they are. And so the reality is, how do we try and predict in the beginning of the 45 minutes, maybe what that long-term relationship could look like? And if you don't have an interview process in place, I challenge you right now. Here's a crazy example of what I used to do. I used to do 3-hour interviews. Number one, the first hour of the interview is all about them. Oh my gosh, tell me about you, Matt. It sounds like you're so amazing. And I'm building them up and they're telling me all about their resume and all their past history. And then I would turn the corner and I would start talking about the challenges and gaps that I'm seeing in their resume. And I want to see how they respond to me kind of poking the bear a little bit and saying, I've seen a challenge here. Well, tell me about that. Why did this happen? I'm very honest. Then I would take them.
Or I've gone on to Facebook and I noticed this picture and this picture and this picture.
There you go. Yep. And tell me, that tells me something about you. What does it tell me about you?
Make them defend themselves. Yeah.
Yes.
Make them defend themselves.
Get them uncomfortable in the 45 minutes. And then I would walk them around the office and I would show them, if you were to be working with me, this would be your desk and your name would be here. So I'm assumptively showing them the role. And then at the end, I bring them back and I say, but I'm not certain. I do the takeaway. I'm not certain you're the right person. Here's what I need you to do. And then I always gave them a DISC assessment. I'm not going to go into this, but a DISC assessment is really one of those glorified personality assessments where I can start seeing the main way that they act and react and choose in their personality and who they are, and they show up in their natural state. That's what's important to me, because if they're in sales, that needs one personality. If they're going to be in administration or engineering or something like that, that's a completely different personality set. And so we can predictively anticipate some of the things up front so we aren't left with a burning pile of ash 6 months from now on a crash and burn, right?
So before your previous role, you're president of a pretty decent-sized company, and you did a lot of hiring. We've talked about this before. I don't hire because I will screw it up every single time. What % of those interviews did you do, or did you put that off to other people to interview, or were you a big part of that process?
Let me indict myself for a minute here. Okay. At first it was, I'm going to do all the interviews because I'm the best at them and I have a better track record. It was so wrong. It was so egotistical to think that way. So I very quickly started passing those interviews off to my executive assistant.
Yeah. And
she was fantastic. Now, I always tried to take part in an interview on some level, depending on where they were at fitting in the company or whether there was a leader, manager that was in between us. It really kind of shook itself out. But there was a couple principles that I learned. Number one, have a unattached neutral third party conduct the interview. based on the roles, the descriptions, and the needs that we or the leader or the manager of that department's given them. So it's a neutral third party, right? That was very helpful. And in many cases, it was going to be someone in the department or maybe a manager or a leader, maybe a cross manager.
They're typically less biased.
Yep, less bias. So we're interviewing. Secondarily, if it's the neutral third party and I was the leader, then have that leader pop in and interview them too. So now we've got a collaborative effect. Now we have two eyes on it is better than one. And we've got the one that's in charge that's going to be overseeing this individual.
Yeah.
So those are two pieces. And then the final piece is I consistently had what's called a panel interview. And a panel interview would be a peer interview, meaning if there's one agent, two agent, three, some admin staff, and some other people, I would call them in. And I will tell you that was probably one of the best things that I've ever done. Because if I'm hiring someone, they were able to take part, ask a few questions. Their say didn't mean everything, but it was very important to me because then as they were onboarded, guess what? They helped in that process.
Yeah.
And they helped pick. So it did gain some traction. The last thing I would say is this. Find some questions in your interview process. I mean, you can go on YouTube and figure out, or Google, just Google interview questions, and you're going to get the same canned questions. I do things different. I want to see how people react. So I always carried around a Rubik's Cube. I don't have my backpack around here. I have a Rubik's Cube. And when I interview people, I will take the Rubik's Cube and I will say, here's the deal. You've got 2.5 minutes to finish this Rubik's Cube. There's no rules. Go. And I slide it across the table, and you can ask anyone that's worked for me. They have gone through this, and I sit there dead quiet, like so dead quiet you can hear a bird chirp from a mile away. All I want to see is how Matt reacts to that. I get there's very few people in the world that can probably solve a Rubik's Cube in 2.5 minutes, but I want to see how they think. Do they immediately pick it up and start trying? Do they start asking some questions about how they can do it? Do they ask me if they can peel all the things off and put them on? How can they start working around it? I want to see how they think, how they're going to react. I certainly want to see if they say, I can't do it. I can't do it. A lot can be surmised in this interview process. So just think about your process for interviewing, and are you doing a good job to try and find the talent up front? Are you putting stopgaps and measures in place that you can identify real talent?
The next part of this with staffing is, creating a culture in your organization, a culture that they want to be in, a culture that works for your organization. Assuming you've done the things you're supposed to do with having standards, having your personal mission, having your company's mission and vision clear that everyone's on the same page on, then there's the everyday, right? It's the walking in, it's how you treat people. I would say in general, I've been slightly appalled on how top advisors treat staff members.
Tell me more about that, Matt. What do you mean?
Very dismissive, very expendable,
better, holier than thou.
Yeah. Short, not kind. These are people that are taking the brunt end of a lot of your clients' concern, questions, and how you treat them will emanate to how they treat your clients. If they really, really like you and they love you because you've just poured into them, that's important. And then the other thing too is we got to be careful on how we pour into our staff members as well. Buying them stuff and, trying to be liked is kind of weird as well. It's that balance of like, how do we show love to each one of them? And this is where it's like, you got to know them. You got to know what's important to them. You got to ask questions about them. You got to listen. And I think that if most people just went in and asked questions and listened to their staff member with a smile on their face, don't have to say anything about how great they are, and just listened, walked away, you're going to get a lot of people loving on you, because you love people that show interest in you. And if you're more interested in questions about their life and how they're doing than telling some great story about yourself, people are going to be engaged in that. Yeah. They're going to want to share with you. And you're going to want to say, that's great. Wow, you're amazing at that. Give a chance to compliment without overdoing it. And as you do that and show that concern in each person, you can start to create that culture of general, like, I like this agent. I like this advisor. And, I've had some experiences maybe for another day, but man, when it came to it, it was me. They took it for the whole team, did it with a smile. And it's, I just went in there with gratitude, tears and hugs for how wonderful they handled it. But that's what great staff members can do.
Yeah.
They can change the outcome.
I agree. And I even go back to this interview process. And I think there's a couple steps too, even before we get into starting to build this culture that help contribute to the culture, is the job offer itself.
Oh, yeah.
How do you make this job offer? Hey, Matt, I'm going to give you X number, $1,000 base salary. We're going to do commission. We're going to do incentive, kicker bonuses, this, and this, and this. And we promise all the things in the world. And it's like, and you start Monday. And I'm like, that was 50% of the job offer. You forgot the other 50% of the job offer. It's called your business. And so when we make job offers, these job offers are contingent. It's a contract. It's a two-way contract between I will pay you this if you
do this.
Do this. And the do this sets them up for success. I will tell you two things that people want to do. They want to know how to win and succeed, number one, and they want to know how to please you. So if you can set them up and say, I'll pay you this, but you've got to do this. You have to do, this is what you committed to, right? And it's the standards and the requirements that we have for that role. And now they know how to win.
Yeah. And, I kind of mentioned at the beginning when we were talking, that's something that I failed at. I have failed at that in the past. It always comes back to bite you. I wish that was something I did better at, and it would have saved me a lot of heartache in my past.
Yeah. So let's say we've got someone on now, and we're talking about building culture. I believe in a principle called game time coaching or real time coaching. And this is something that's challenging because now we hire someone, right? And I'm going to say this, I always put people on a 90-day plan, a short window. And so if you've implemented this, kudos. If you haven't, think about it. It may be right for you and your organization. But hire on an agent and say, this is what you committed to, but over the next 90 days, I'm going to break it down into bite-sized chunks so that at 30 days we can review, at 60 days we can review, and at 90 days, we can review where you're at. And we're going to know if we're winning as an organization. And it's going to help them. It's going to help step them along into this culture. It's going to allow them to understand if they're doing well or they're not doing well. At the end of 90 days, I can ask one question. Matt, how do you think you're doing? And there will be either dead silence or they'll say, I know exactly what I'm doing. I got this, man. Let's go. And they're going to buy into that culture, and they're going to keep moving and shaking. And those are the ones that are going to be the successful ones, right?
Yeah. I feel like with agents and staff member both, I think that sometimes we think that mentality for agents, but we very rarely think that way for staff members.
Yeah.
And staff members, it's equally, if not more important, to do the exact same thing.
Yeah. I'm the piece that I didn't speak about, and it's just coming back to me, is that real-time coaching. We're so often as a leader afraid of offending, embarrassing, or hurting someone's feelings. When something goes wrong, we choose to do nothing.
Yeah.
Or worse yet, we actually go home and we stew about it and we lose sleep. And then 1 week goes by and we're still losing sleep. And we're like, I should have talked about that. I haven't talked about that. How am I going to talk about that? How would I talk about that?
Or worse, you vent to 10 other people and not talk to the person you needed to talk to.
That's exactly right. And so, man, if I could breathe life into leaders or agents, advisors, IMOs, FMOs, real-time coach, when you hear it, deal with it. Now, I'm not meaning iron fist. What I mean is when you hear it, sit down, seek to understand what's going on. Like, tell me more about that. How are you feeling? Well, hey, guess what? We made a commitment that we're going to live to this standard. How do we get back there? And coach them through that, lead them through that. Don't smash them down. Don't put them down in hopes that they'll somehow elevate. But man, I will tell you, it's so important, this concept of real-time coaching.
Yeah, and that's a tricky one. Just break some of the verbiage to get into real-time coaching. What are some verbiages that you've noticed? So you see someone doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Right in the moment. You can role play with me here.
Awesome.
I just got done with a phone call with a customer. I'm a staff agent, doesn't matter. I just said the wrong thing.
Yep.
Hung up, and you're walking by.
Yep. Matt's super hot, said the wrong thing, got mad. The first rule is to call the game. So I'm walking by Matt's cubicle. I'm walking by Matt's office. Hey, Matt, I noticed you just said really bad words to somebody. Tell me, what's going on? So you'll notice two things. Number one, I called the game. I didn't walk by. I didn't ignore it. I said, hey, I noticed you said this. And then I said, hey, tell me what's going on. Help me understand. And then I say that, and Matt, you reply with what?
Person was cussing me out. treating me poorly. I said a bunch of negative things about you weren't true, and they're threatening to go to the state which is not true at all. And I listened to them for 20 minutes, and they kept cussing me out. And finally, you just got me kind of communicating to them the way they're communicating to me, and I let them know.
Yep. So now at this point, Matt, is the biggest thing for us as leaders is we want to solve the problem. The problem is you can't do that anymore, Matt.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. Instead, number 2, stay in curiosity. Well, no kidding, Matt. Tell me more. Tell me more about that situation.
Well, basically they were supposed to get a form in. They didn't get the form on time. We sent them the form, but they're just mad that they didn't get the form, and now they can't get their RMD at the right time.
Uh-huh.
And so they didn't get the check when they thought they were going to check, and they're really upset about it.
That sounds super frustrating. And that, what did that cost you? That missed form, and help me understand what that cost you.
Well, he's threatening that he's going to go talk to his lawyer and to the state because he didn't get to pay his taxes on time, and now there's going to be a penalty. And he's furious at the company, but it's nothing we did. It's the company that didn't send the form. That's what's going on here.
Yeah. So let's rewind a little bit then. So all of this is happening, and you're caught up in the emotions of this. Tell me, how do you think you handled it?
Well, I thought at the beginning I was doing great. I just lost the patience. I just am so freaking mad at this guy, and I'm done.
I get it, man. That's frustrating. So let's pretend forward that you just continue interacting with all your clients like this in that same manner. What do you think will happen?
Probably they're going to get more mad, and they're going to carry through with what they said.
Yeah.
And instead of maybe talking them off a ledge.
And if they carry through with what they say, what happens?
Well, we're going to have some problems here. Because we're going to have, complaints and different things that we have to deal with. And so we're going to have some problems.
So help me understand. Next time one of these situations arises, because it's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Next time it arises, how do you think you could handle it differently?
Well, I think if I can't get to the point where I can solve it, I think I probably need to bring you in sooner.
Okay. And what's that mean? Bring me in sooner?
Well, the form didn't get there on time. And so I don't know what we can do. I don't know what exceptions can be made. I don't know how this all works. I was just trying to get him to calm down.
Yeah. And
so maybe I should have, instead of trying to fix that whole problem with that guy, just let him know how hard it was, and then just maybe said, hey, I'm going to bring Matt in, and we're going to get this figured out, or I'm going to bring you and Jared, and we'll get this figured out.
That makes perfect sense. So Matt, then going forward, what are you committing to with me?
That I won't get so mad and cuss out my customers.
Okay, awesome. So obviously this is a role play, and we're just having fun. But I hope that the takeaway from the community that's listening is this. Number 1, I called the game. And then number 2, the job as a leader is not to solve the problem. The job as a leader is to help the individual become self-aware and solve the problem for themselves. It does no good. Have you ever heard a coach on the sideline that coaches every single play of the basketball game?
Yeah.
Pass it to them, pass it to Matt, shoot it, stop, back. Like, as a leader, man, we've got to empower our people. And so the way we do that is to stay in curiosity, call the game. I saw what happened. Tell me about it. Tell me more. Hey, what does that cost you? And start asking drill down questions. As you notice, if you rewind this, I bet I didn't make a statement. I only asked questions.
Yeah. And I found that the more likely scenarios in an office organization is it's very rarely, hey, I walked by and I heard this. It's usually so-and-so said this, a client said this, walk me through what happened.
Yep.
And that's the easiest way to hit it head on.
Yep.
Walk me through what happened. And you got to be calm. You got to be understanding. You got to be on their side to try to really understand. And you're going to find some times where they screwed up, and it's, sometimes it's so bad that they don't get to stay there, right? But very rarely that's the case.
I always believe as a leader, truth is better.
Yeah.
Go get the truth right now so you can handle it. It may be painful, but go get the pain. Don't let that pain linger. And then no doubt at the end of it, you have to tie a bow on it. So I didn't sit there and leave it open-ended in hopes that you connected. I asked you, so Matt, what are you going to commit to today going forward? And they're going to commit to something. I think it's so important.
What's interesting is, Jared, you've coached me on some of these things as I've helped people over the years and grown some of my businesses with some of the consulting you've done with us. What was interesting is what I started doing after a while is because I went through that whole process. I could keep it short after a while. I just go back and I'm like, what'd you learn? And they're so used to that whole coaching process. It just got to, they finally realized, okay, this is the coaching moment. I don't have to go through that. But that first 2 or 3 times you have to walk people through that, especially if they're not used to it. But you can get to the point where you're finally like, heard that one. What happened? and then they're really good about it, and they can kind of walk through the whole process themselves.
Yeah, well, and ultimately, the old saying is that talent craves accountability.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, talented people want to be coached. They want to know what they're doing wrong. They want to know when they can win. And so it goes back to, what do people want? They want to know how to please you.
Yeah. I've they talk about talent craves accountability. What I've also learned is talent, or people in general, crave progression. I want to feel like things are going up. I want to feel like my life is moving forward. And so, if you're not constantly thinking about how I can move my employee's life forward, you're gonna lose talent. It's gonna happen. And if you got people that are content with where they are and not moving forward, maybe they're not the right people.
Having that talented individual sitting on your doorstep and be like, hey, Matt, I just want to let you know, bud, I'm going to the competitor.
Yeah.
And then what happens? What do you need? Anything. What salary do you need?
It's too late.
You're almost begging, because you got to go back through the process of rehiring, identifying the needs, bringing them on board, training them, and you got to slow down to speed up. And so my coaching, or maybe some insight that I can give to you, is when you bring someone on, set them up with a plan, review what they've done, continually review what they've done, help them understand what they could do to do better. And as you have this cycle and you get in this flow with your talented individuals, any of your individuals for that matter, you're going to see that progression and you're going to see that growth.
Absolutely.
I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope that this has been helpful in helping you understand and at least start pinpointing some of the influential pieces of business that would show indications or signs that you're ready to grow. And then secondly, how you can start navigating through the hiring and firing process, but also how we can start establishing the win-win culture for all of the people, so that our businesses will continue to grow. Thanks for joining us. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow us on your preferred platform wherever you listen to podcasts. Remember, success loves company, so share this podcast with someone who you think might enjoy it too, and let's build a community together. Let's keep the momentum going until the next episode drops. And hey, if you got any questions or topic ideas that you would like us to focus on, send us a message on social media. Again, thanks so much for joining us. Until next time.